The year is 2002. The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers is smashing the box office. Super Mario Sunshine is filling childhoods with joy. Jenna Ortega is born. And Mickey Mouse is lured into a mirror by a demon. No, I'm not joking. That is literally the inciting incident in a video game created by Disney for very young kids. Now don't get me wrong, this isn't me bashing Disney or trying to imply any sort of Disney conspiracy theory anything. That's not what this is. I love it. I'm all about this weird, trippy childhood horror thing.
What?
In essence, it's like any other childhood horror thing. It's like Coraline, or Luigi's Mansion, or that one song at the end of the Disneyland sing-along song VHS tape that terrified me as a kid, but also perplexed me with how much I loved it. It's the same thing, and I really honestly wish that more game developers would have made more games like this over the years since, because they're pretty few and far between. And what better way to encourage kids to conquer their fears than by just watching something or playing something that's totally harmless in and of itself, but at least leaves you feeling like, oh, I can actually face something that's scary and survive to see it through. Just because something is scary doesn't mean it's going to be the death of you. But this is the game. And this is the target audience. Again, not bashing at all. If somebody else wants to raise the argument that this game was tone deaf, then by all means. Just, you know, maybe don't kick off your YouTube channel making an analysis video about an incredibly obscure 2-decade-old game that nobody talks about, because that would be stupid. So, weirdly enough, for as near and dear as this game is to me, I actually haven't gotten the title right for most of my life. The real title is Disney's Magical Mirror, starring Mickey Mouse. But that's an oddly long and specific title for a children's game, so I've always referred to it as Mickey's Magic Mirror, or Mickey's Magical Mirror, or that scary Mickey Mouse game that gives me nightmares. But no, I'm not going to stop playing it, Mom and Dad. I like the feeling of being scared. Trust me, that's going to be a core part of my personality as an adult, so you should just prepare for disappointment now, because it only gets worse from here. I guess I'm inherently biased when I look back on this game, because I loved it so much as a kid, so I played the living out of it, so it holds this weird chicken or the egg space in my memory. Does it feel dreamlike because I loved it as a kid and then didn't play it again for like 2 decades? Or because it was designed to feel dreamlike? Either case would make sense. But on top of that, it's extremely creepy. So it also feels like a nightmare that you'd have as a kid. And then having played it again recently, it literally feels like you're being given access to enter into a dream that terrified you as a kid, that subconsciously stuck with you all your life. And to be fair, I know I've got these rosy nostalgia glasses that are impossible to remove from my face, but you at least can't deny it's weird. It's a weird game. It works in an extremely unique way that I really don't think any other game does, at least none that I'm aware of. It captures the surreal, unsettling vibe of a childhood dream warping into a nightmare without warning. Sort of like Skinamarink, but actually for children. Wait, why is that such an accurate comparison though? Suffice it to say, I really don't think about this game nearly as often as you might think, given that I'm making a video on it, but it quietly resurfaced in my subconscious while playing Amnesia for the first time just a few months ago. The first Amnesia, you know, the one from 2010. I don't know why it took me so long to play one of the most popular horror games of all time as a massive horror fan, but I got COVID and just tore through Amnesia: The Dark Descent and A Machine for Pigs, and through both games, especially the first. In the living quarters and the fancy castle hallways, I found myself in this very strange headspace, which for sure was a combination of COVID, all of the meds that I was on just coursing through my bloodstream, but also this weird nostalgia trip that I could not place my finger on. It's like when you smell something that triggers a memory from childhood and you're like, what is that? And why do I love it? And why do I need more right now? Oh my god, why does nostalgia feel so good? Even down to the music and sound design, there's something really cozy to me about Brennenburg Castle. The red carpet hallways, fancy bedrooms, cobwebs and candles, and to some extent it brings me back to playing Luigi's Mansion for the Gamecube. But as much as I love that game too, it never really felt very cozy to me. But this, gosh dang Mickey Mouse game. I don't know how else to explain it. What that game did for my ooh spooky kid brain, Amnesia did for my ooh spooky adult brain. And when that feeling got triggered, this Mickey Mouse game resurfaced, and it just would not let go. Mostly because I have a very rare and very unfortunate combination of ADHD and OCD, so anything that I can possibly fixate on, hyper-focus on, or obsess over, I will do all three of those simultaneously, to the extreme. The plot is incredibly simple past that inciting incident. I mean, there's literally almost no plot at all. Basically, Mickey just has to explore this abandoned castle searching for shards of the mirror that he entered through because the ghost/demon shattered it with his electricity powers. So really just another night out with the boys. From a basic gameplay perspective, it's both mediocre and kinda brilliant, which I promise will make sense in a minute. Don't hold me to that time slot, it'll make sense soon. I'm trying my best, but honestly, I don't know what I'm doing any more than you know what I'm doing. God, really going for that hard sell on this YouTube channel right now. So it's gotta be basic since it's for kids, so it's a point-and-click game with a fixed camera perspective, alternating as you move throughout the room solving puzzles. It's a little reminiscent of early Resident Evil games, which makes sense. It's another Capcom game developed only 6 years after the first Resident Evil entry. Now, I don't know how much control Disney actually had over the gameplay itself. Believe it or not, the internet isn't exactly overflowing with Disney's magical mirror starring Mickey Mouse trivia. Shocking, I know. But let me just quickly get a few basics out of the way for context, because without them, what I'm about to say will be very confusing. So in addition to the point-and-click function of the game, and maybe just as central to the gameplay itself, is the trick-or-treat function, which unfortunately has nothing to do with Halloween. It's not a thing in any other game that I know of. Trick-or-treat is central. And not just to the player's experience of the game, but the actual game progression itself. As the player, you're obviously playing as Mickey. You direct him where to go, you're on Mickey's side, of course, he's Mickey. And you could totally choose to always be on Mickey's side, but if you choose that, which is treat, your progress in the game is immediately limited. You will not get far if you don't ever choose trick. So if you want to make progress in the game, you're not on Mickey's side, you're on the ghost side. You interact with all sorts of objects, but certain objects will catch you by surprise when the colors of the screen invert.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
When the screen goes negative, you'll often see some sort of potential harm about to befall Mickey. The music shifts suddenly, it's intense and unnerving, and you can choose trick or treat. And there's literally zero benefit for choosing treat beyond avoiding seeing something potentially upsetting, and in nearly every case, there's some sort of game progression benefit to choosing trick, but you're forced to either cause some serious harm to befall Mickey, or get full-blown jump scared as the player, which, again, weird mechanic in and of itself, but for a kid's game? It's a little sadistic, Capcom. Why? What's the logic here? I'm not complaining, but I am very confused. And it's not like it's only a few little moments here and there, it's like a lot. And the further that you progress into the game, the more frequent these events are. They escalate from a wardrobe jumping around with Mickey trapped inside of it for a little bit, to a loose plank very nearly decapitating Mickey. Can I even say that on YouTube? I honestly don't know if I can say most of what I'm about to say on YouTube. Oops. From Mickey getting his hand stuck in a vase, to a giant golden chandelier very nearly flattening Mickey. From Mickey's body getting caught and crushed in a bunch of machinery in a clock tower like it's some Live Leak video, to Mickey being forced to tightrope walk across a rope between two massive towers. From a possessed sword slicing through the air, chasing you down a dark hallway you've never been down before while ghost furniture tries to crush you, to a painting of a beautiful princess morphing into a hellish witch jump scare. Not to mention, the more that you progress through the game, the more that you find yourself in increasingly more dilapidated and drab spaces. And I don't mean drab like the devs got lazy further into the game. If anything, they got more creative with the environments. You just feel less and less welcome in this place. Especially after you cross the rope to the other tower, you really feel like there's just no end to this castle. And it does not stop feeling like this castle just really, really hates Mickey Mouse. And all of this is only made more disorienting and dreamlike, as you'll walk into one room that's bright and colorful and comforting, and the music is bright and upbeat and happy and familiar, and the very next room is dark, and the furniture is in shambles, the music is heavy with bassy violin, sharp piano notes, and as a kid, you just dread going into every single room, because while any room might be comforting and chill and have the nice music that's... By the way, the music is amazing in this game. It's consistently fantastic.
Gee, what's this? Okay.
There's one cover of the song from Sleeping Beauty, the one about dreams. I forget what that's called, but it's in there. While it may be totally chill, it also may not be, and you don't know whether it's going to be nice or spooky until you get into that next area, but either way, you gotta go in because you gotta save Mickey by hurting Mickey through these trick-or-treat moments. And there's at least one in almost every room, and as exhausting as that sounds, it really doesn't wear off because it's always something completely new, and therefore terrifying as a kid. Of course, I don't want to blow the quote-unquote scary elements out of proportion. At the end of the day, it's still a kid's game, starring Mickey Mouse, designed for a very young audience. And it's definitely filled with plenty of cutesy tricks, like making a bunch of silverware come to life and dance around a kitchen. But even the simpler tricks have an underlying sense of unease. And I really mean that, because we know right out the gate that a clearly malicious ghost is behind this. So when Mickey gets shrunk down by a toy witch and then chased around by a sentient suitcase with glowing eyes and sharp teeth, and subsequently chased around even more by a sentient rubber ducky that's relatively massive while you're tiny, it feels dangerous. It just inherently rides this line between cute and innocent and legitimately evil. And to be fair, if you know horror at all, then you know that it can't all be as scary as possible all the time. Think about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Not the movie, but the books, obviously. They weren't all terrifying. Some of them were pretty chill. Now, the illustrations were straight out of every child's nightmares. Nightmares that nobody even thought that you could even have until you saw those illustrations, and man oh man do they still stick with me to this day. But the stories can't all be terrifying, always. You gotta have some levity so that the scares actually hit harder when they do show up. Otherwise you'll just get fatigued immediately and not care anymore. You gotta be lulled into a false sense of security so that when the scares actually do happen, they hit that much harder. And this game, somehow, for some reason, just nails that. For better or worse, Trick or Treat isn't the only special game mechanic. There are also minigames. Plenty of games, especially from this early 2000s era, would slip in a few minigames to spice things up here and there. Madagascar, the video game, really stands out in my memory for many reasons, not the least of which being the minigames. Barnyard, the video game, don't even get me started. The hours I spent, not wasted, being some species of animal playing an arcade game or mini golf, throwing live chickens into a boiling cauldron for Little Red Riding Hood. What? Something about it just really satisfied my dumb kid brain. That said, the minigames in Mickey's Magical Whatever are not the best. I mean, they're not necessarily bad, but the controls just straight up did not work half the time, especially in the TV dance minigame. I'll just say it's abundantly clear why this is a point-and-click game. Now that said, this is probably a good time to mention the potentially obvious inspiration for this game. It's without a doubt inspired by the 1936 Disney animated short Through the Mirror, which, as you can imagine, was in and of itself inspired by Alice Through the Looking Glass. Which is relevant to mention now because that's how the TV minigame starts. This is also an odd detail in and of itself when you think about it, because I don't really know if Mickey Mouse is just some Hollywood A-list star in his own Disney universe, so he can just see himself on TV and it's a normal occurrence, because he doesn't really have a very big reaction. He's just like, oh wow, cool, and then he just proceeds like it's not really a big deal. So I don't know, maybe I'm just not even supposed to think about it that much, but his reaction doesn't give us a lot to work with, which I'll actually touch on again later. But right now, Mickey is dancing on a cake, so we have bigger fish to fry, or cakes to bake, or dance lessons to learn, because Mickey Mouse knows how to dance better than most people that you know. I guarantee it. Look at him. Look at him go. I never knew that Mickey Mouse could dance this well. I don't know what he's supposed to be slapping there, but I still want to learn these lessons. Where do I sign up? And a major source of anxiety for me is knowing that one day I'll probably, hopefully, get married and will inevitably have to dance in front of a bunch of friends and family. And I don't know if you've ever seen The Office, but the way that Jim dances at the end of season 5 at the Cafe Disco, just sort of hopping in place like the dance floor is just a trampoline, is more or less the extent of my dancing skills. So Mickey, if you're out there, hit me up with those dance lessons. Which actually leads me to the next minigame. Mickey Mouse is also amazing at playing guitar. Guitar Hero before Guitar Hero. Is there anything that this mouse isn't good at? And again, where do I get these lessons? I want to play guitar like that. This is amazing. Sincerely though, I want to shake the hand of whoever composed the music for this minigame. It is way too good. There's also a barrel minigame, which is okay. There's also a plane minigame, which is also just okay, and a snowboarding minigame, which would be a lot more fun if the controls were even just a tiny bit more responsive. Also, the credits is a minigame, which is actually pretty fun. The controls work well. It's a little pointless since it's at the end of the game, but still, I honestly wish more games would do this. I don't care to read all the game developers' names. I don't care how many tireless, thankless hours they spent pulling this whole thing together. I just want to shoot words with my cool magic fireballs, okay? Oh yeah, spoilers. Mickey does actually make it out of this alive. Somehow. moving on from all of that, I am both frustrated by and in love with the fact that this game gives the player so little to work with as far as understanding what's really going on in this partly dilapidated mansion setting. The only actual dialogue comes strictly from Mickey, and even then, it's not like he knows what's going on either, and even if he did, he's a mouse of few words.
Shake it off! Yeah!
That one's my favorite. The environmental storytelling here is chaotic, dreamlike in that sense for sure, but it really gives the player very little to work with as far as headcanon, or actual canon. I mean, after all of this is sort of just headcanon. The whole thing is Mickey dreaming everything up. It's literally all happening in his head. Right?
Wrong!
Which brings us to the end of the game. If you're dedicated enough to complete the game, you'll have collected all the mirror shards. And you'll be treated to this uncomfortable, emotionally manipulative moment with the ghost. He's acting all sad, like, oh, I was just lonely, I just wanted someone to play with, I'm sorry, please stay. I mean, it doesn't say that, but like, it's clear that that's what he's doing. I mean, just look at him. You can't trust that guy. Especially not after all that he's done. And Mickey has this clear internal debate going on. It's getting to him. But he looks back at the mirror and sees himself asleep, along with whatever fun little decorations you've collected throughout the castle, which is a fun reward, but how did those things manifest in the real world if it was all just a dream? But I guess at this point we're still inside the mirror, so okay, sure. And thank God, Mickey decides to go through the mirror to head back to reality. Sweet. Awesome. We can all breathe easy. Mickey is triumphantly entering the mirror in this weird liminal reality between the castle and the real world, but there, curiosity takes hold. He looks back again and sees the ghost really just giving everything that he's got into this emotional manipulation trap, and
Here we go!
no. Mickey, no. No, don't fall for it. No! The ghost cackles deviously, wickedly. Mickey might just think that he's joyful, he's happy that he's made a friend, he's gonna go back to the real world, oh, they're gonna have such a fun time together. No. No, Mickey. You have no idea what you have just unleashed into this world. Like a Ouija board pretending to be a loved one, when it's truly just a demon seeking nothing but harm. And Mickey has fallen hook, line, and sinker. And this ghost knows full well that you are so naive. That is why the ghost laughs. Ah, but it's just a dream. Mickey slips back out of the mirror with no ghost to be seen. You watch as Mickey's soul returns to his sleeping body, time passes, and he wakes up in a room without any of the things that he's collected in the castle. He briefly considers the strangeness of the dream before moving on with the day.
Bottom. Whoa, was that a dream? I wonder. Well, either way, I'm back!
And he leaves the room while the camera stays behind.
Oh, let's go eat. I'm kinda hungry. Hope I got some cheese.
To reveal what Mickey failed to notice. That is, the ghost who first lured Mickey's soul to project forth from his body and into the mirror, where he spent hours passing by like countless agonizing days of repeated torment after torment, is now hanging from the ceiling fan, grinning viciously, watching, waiting. And what is beneath him? A star? Oh no. A pentagram. So we have reached the end of the video. I don't know what motivated you to watch this or click on it in the first place, and I don't know what motivated me to make it, but here we are. And I really want to sincerely thank you for watching all the way through and just hanging out with me and allowing me to analyze this video game that most people have either forgotten about or never knew about in the first place. I do intend to make new videos, something about BioShock and maybe even Silent Hill, because not enough people have made analysis videos on those. So if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like and even a comment if you want to manipulate the algorithm like that ghost manipulated Mickey. I hope to see you next time. Stay safe out there, and steer clear of ghosts and mirrors. Yeah.